Welcome to Nestology. We are your hosts. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Shelley.
And today we're going to actually have a special guest. We have one of my home inspectors joining us to talk about red flags, things to look out for when you are buying a home. This is what, we want to talk about the things that you're going to look for when you're at the initial visit, when you're seeing the home, because we want to make sure that you catch some of these things before you get to that inspection, because the inspection comes after you've already invested a lot of time and money. So
yeah, I've heard some of your crazy stories with the things that you have seen.
Yes. And I mean, of course, there's a reason you do an inspection.
What is the purpose of an inspection?
To find all of the problems in the house. And I mean, or find what you can. It's to learn as much as you can about the house. But if there are some glaring red flags, you can prepare. It's not to say that you're not going to buy this house, but it may help you with writing the offer. Maybe you need to be more conservative on the price, or just prepare yourself mentally. Like if you know that you have a 20-year-old AC unit, you can be prepared that that's an expense you have to take on. So when the inspector says, hey, guess what? It's a 20-year-old AC unit. You're like, hey, I already knew that. So those are the things that we want to share with you guys. So if you're buying a house in the near future, when you go in, you're not just looking at the shiny, pretty, new counters that were put in the house. Mm-hmm. You're paying attention to the things that really matter. So
yeah. How do you find an inspector?
Well, you should have a real estate agent that can give you some great suggestions. But like we've talked about with hiring contractors, always look at reviews, research, talk to them, ask questions about the services, because they don't all offer the same thing. So, but yeah, we're going to have Amy join us. So I will go ahead and get her in on the call.
All right, let's do it.
So today we have Amy joining us. She is the co-owner with Tanya of the Inspection Ladies. They started their business 3 years ago, right, Amy?
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
Perfect. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank y'all for having me.
So tell us a little bit about you. What got you into the inspection business?
What got me into the inspection business? That's a loaded question. I was actually the COO of a company, oil recycling company, and, kind of running that and doing that. And I took that job to be home more. Ended up, I was not home more. And so I was just kind of tired and fed up. And realtor friends of mine, we were starting to come through the pandemic and, getting to the end of that, and, home buying was going crazy. And realtor friends of mine were like, why don't you come be a realtor? And I was like, no, I don't want to be a realtor. I envy hard job. You guys, more power to you. Everything I do to make your job easier, because I don't want to be a realtor. And we got started talking, and I love houses. I love everything about them. And it became well, what about home inspecting? And I was like, that's a great one. Like, I get to educate people. I get to look at houses all day. I get to play in houses all day. And it was just more of the natural fit for me than being the realtor aspect of it. And we really got fortunate. We did kind of jump in at a time when, people were waiving inspections and they had 2-day options, and, and we just kind of became the company that was, hey, give us a shot, right? Like, if your other guy's busy, here's our phone number, call us. And so that's what really kind of built our business, was being available, answering the phone at midnight, and, yes, I'll get you the next day, and just running with it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Amy, why didn't you consider being a lender?
You know what? I'm already.
That's worse than being a real estate agent.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
But I like to be out and about. Really, I do like the physical work. I know we were just talking about the roofs a minute ago. I do like moving around and being out and about instead of sitting at a desk all day. And,
yeah, well, that's true. I go nowhere.
Which
I
is
just sit in front of my computer.
Okay. Well, it's ironic because I am the treasurer on a board for the Women's Council of Realtors. So I'm like,
oh, are you really?
Yeah. It's I'll be done in October. I've been in it for 2 years, and so it's time to move on and move on from there.
Gotcha.
Are you having any regrets about that inspector decision with the 107-degree inspections right now?
Some days. Someday, when we're in an attic and I have to. Generally, if the furnaces are gas, we run them regardless of the temperature outside. So when the attic's already 120 plus degrees and you turn on 2 gas furnaces and let them run, and by the time I get up in there, it's over 200 and I'm slowly baking myself. I'm like,
Oh,
this is a bad decision. But no, it's been awesome.
you
I
were
just drink
complaining that it
lots
was
of
warm
water.
here today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
warm in my house just being on the second floor. We're not even in the attic, but we're close. We're close.
Right? You might need to get that AC checked. I'm just
I
saying.
do.
She does. I
Oh
was
my
just telling
gosh, we
her.
already were talking about that. I'm learning so much
I've
on
gave
our own podcast. Like, okay, I've got to get that checked.
Yeah, she has it set at what 72, and she said it's 77 in here. So I
Yeah.
think there's a problem.
It'll
Yeah.
take
It's
about
your- it's
4
your-
hours to catch up.
That's your first sign if you try to cut it down. And
I
expect it to
know.
cool
I
down
live
in 5 minutes.
downstairs.
She's living in denial.
I know. Just trying to get through another summer.
Oh, I hear
Well,
you.
So Amy, I mean, we were already talking about how we had you on today, so we can talk a little bit about things that a buyer should look out for when they go into the first showing for a house. Obviously, you're going to come in later and do a more thorough investigation for them, but wanted to talk about some things that they can look out for so they aren't having complete shock panic attack when they see your report.
Well, I'm not guaranteeing they won't anyway, because I am thorough. I do make a really good honey-do list.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times some of the realtors are quick to point out, when you first go in, they're quick to point out, the roof, right? Like, a lot of you guys will look up and go, oh, hey, the roof, we need to talk about that or have someone inspect it. Foundations, I think y'all do have a good grasp on sometimes, especially if you walk in and you can tell that it's just completely wonky. So those are things. I mean, I would say walk around the exterior of the house. Take the time to do that and look for those cracks that y'all might not be seeing, for the foundation on the walls and stuff. Would be a good start. While you're out there, looking at the AC condensers, the HVAC condensers that are on the outside, to kind of get a general idea of the age of it. Those HVAC condensers do have labels on them most of the time that will tell you what kind of refrigerant is in there. A quick search of HVAC age, for that carrier will tell you how to read it and get an age on it if you can't figure that out. So usually I tell everybody, kind of R22 systems. A lot of times they may be running the day that we're in there and that we're doing the inspection. But R22 is a banned freon now, so it's almost like black market trying to get it.
It's so expensive. If you can find it, it's really expensive.
So it's like I tell everybody, hey, it may be working today, the day I do the inspection, but there's no guarantee when we do hit, especially if it's springtime, and by the time we hit August, when it's what it is out there now, it's going to struggle, and it may go down on you. And already kind of going in forehand, and having that foresight to say, okay, maybe I need to start saving for this, or is this an absolute deal breaker for me? So HVAC's a big one. To kind of glance at that and get that idea to know that, we're really going to dive into it. Electrical is kind of another one that, especially if you can find the main electric panel in the house, whether it be in the garage or in a closet. If you still have one in a closet, you're hitting some really old electric systems on the main panels. Or on the exterior. So there are a lot of things that I do tend to call out on the electric panels, because even a house that's a year old is not up to the most current code. So, I tell everybody, look for, if you see the words Federal Pacific electric panel, something like that. That's a huge one. I won't even pull the covers off of those just because of,
what does that mean? I don't even know what that means.
So Federal Pacific, it was a company that was around in the 60s, 70s, or prior to. The breakers on them, they went out of business in the mid 70s is kind of when they went out of business, because they couldn't make a product that wouldn't fail. So a lot of times the Federal Pacific,
nice.
Yeah. So the Federal Pacific breakers, the job of an electric panel, the breaker is, if it senses a surge or an issue within that circuit, the job is to break. and to shut off and kill the power going to those circuits and those branches. And the Federal Pacifics would melt and burn up before they, catch a house on fire before they ever broke, right? So,
Yes.
Wow.
um, so yeah, just about any inspector out there is going to red flag a Federal Pacific panel. And there were some, in the early 70s, they did get better, but it's still, even if today in 2024, if you're looking at a panel that was put in the mid 70s, it's just old at that point anyway. Breakers are meant to only last about 20 to 25 years before they can fail, and not do their job. So it's, looking at those panels and just kind of getting an idea. So there's several other brands out there, like Cisco is another one. Looks like a big old Christmas tree, or a racing tree stoplight is what I tell everybody, drag racing tree or whatever. Those breakers also would melt instead of breaking. So there's several out there. I think a lot of what I'm running into is especially renovators are starting to replace those, instead of leaving them. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's something we see with flips a lot where they won't replace windows or electrical panels, but they put in pretty new counters and floors. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's, I usually tell buyers that, or even the realtors that I talk to, I kind of talk to a lot of newer realtors about these things to look at.
at the beginning you mentioned like the roof, and so yes, hopefully the agents are pointing this out, but if they do have a newer agent or an agent who's not very thorough, what kind of things should they be looking out for when they're looking at the roof?
Obviously, you want to kind of notice if you've got shingles missing. That's one of
Yeah.
the biggest ones to kind of give us signs. It's hard from the ground to kind of say, oh, I've got hail damage on this roof, but
Yeah.
you can kind of look. If you're starting to see the edges of the shingles looking a little bit white or a whitish color, they're starting to fray a little bit, and it's starting to lose the granule that's on them, and you're starting to see the fiberglass coming through. That's a pretty good sign that roof's almost uninsurable at that point.
Okay.
I think insurance companies now are really getting to where they're sticklers on anything over 10 years old. Obviously, I'm not an
Yes, I've heard
insurance
that.
either, so these are just things I've been hearing. Kind of across from it is, I can, some shingles, the more expensive shingles that are, I've seen some that are 15 years old and look great, and I had a hard time believing it was a 15-year-old shingle, but they're also in an area that had very little hail storms come through. They get very little hail that comes through, especially here in Texas. You know how it is. But yeah, so I would look for missing shingles. I would just kind of look at the overall look of it, right? You can kind of gauge that it looks a little bit older, a little bit
When
of
you
wear
see
on.
like the waving, because it's something that we've noticed, because like you said, from the ground, you can only see so many things, but where you see a lot of the dips and waves in the roof, is that something that should be a red flag?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
At that point, so a lot of times with that, if it's an older house, you tend to see that because when they built the house, the structure itself, they put the rafters a little bit further apart than what they do in today's construction. So when they put them a little bit further apart, and when they put that roof decking on, sometimes they miss what they call H clips, which actually creates a little bit of a space
Gotcha.
in between that roof decking. So when they don't have the H clips and you've got rafters spread a little bit further apart, you tend to get that little bit of a bow and a little bit of a
Gravity.
wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I mean, now if I get up in the attic, which y'all don't have to do, right? I'm not telling everybody, hey, climb in the attic. Sometimes we will see structural damage as a result, but 90% of the time it's just kind of the age of the house and it's just how they built it.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
And for foundations, I mean, yes, I know some of the things to look out for, but do you mind sharing some of the things that a buyer, again, because I've actually heard a few situations now where buyers said that their agent stood outside or just stayed in the kitchen and let them explore on their own. They're not pointing anything out. So,
Yeah. Well, okay, so as far as interior, and I tend to get a lot of this, whether it be agents or even buyers that will look at it and they'll see little bitty cracks, in the seam tape, in the corners. Let's say in the
mhm,
corner of a house, it's got a vaulted ceiling. There are some cracks that happen in the house that are minor. A lot
mhm,
of those are due to what we call thermal expansion in the drywall, which it expands and contracts, and You see it in garages because they're hot cold. You see it
Yeah.
in the ceilings. You see it a lot. So those aren't necessarily major issues. That's more cosmetic stuff. What you're really looking for, and I even see a lot of straight cracks like under windows and doors. If it
Mhm.
looks pretty straight line, it's 90% of the time cosmetic, right?
Okay.
Really, what they need to look for are jagged cracks,
Hmm.
whether they be around windows or doors. I do see a lot of those. If on the walls around windows and doors, if we're getting really jagged, crooked cracks, that's movement. That's more
Yeah.
movement related. Now, how much movement just depends on kind of how bad those cracks can get, and that's when you kind of tend to say, okay, let me go try to correspond what I'm seeing on the outside, because a lot of times you won't necessarily see a crack in the foundation itself.
Hmm.
You're going to see those cracks in the exterior walls, in the interior walls that suggest those movements.
Right.
They can also open and close doors, right? You're walking into a room, look at it, open it. If that door's sticking and you're seeing cracks and everything else, then you may have some foundation stuff going on there.
I showed a house this week, and we could feel the slope upstairs
Yeah.
when we were walking. We could feel the slope, so we started closing doors. Not a single door upstairs would close.
Yeah.
Wouldn't latch at all. So,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That would have been one that I'd have been like, hey, get a foundation guy out there.
well, I told them, I said, we're seeing signs, and they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. We have no idea about foundation issues. I'm like, do you go to the bathroom with the door open? Because not even the bathroom doors would close. It was awful.
Oh
So,
my
Well,
gosh.
my house is I have a bathroom door that won't close or it sticks. Sometimes it
yeah.
does. So yes, we do get seasonal movement in
Yes.
our house, and so it's I think a lot of foundation companies, again, I'm not foundation, I'm a home inspector.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of the guys will tell me they won't even recommend repairs until they're getting up to about an inch difference once they take measurements, right?
Right.
So you do tend to have some seasonal stuff, always going to be ongoing and everything like that. And everything moves. We're in Texas, right? Everything moves.
Hmm.
So,
What about like exterior, I'm always thinking about my house, Jessica.
Yeah. She always uses this time to get educated on her house.
Okay, how
okay,
about
yes. Let me
yeah,
educate you on your house.
so this is probably a stupid question, but say you have brick steps, a few steps going up to your front porch. If that is cracking in between the steps, is that a foundation, or is that separate from the steps? Is that a concern, I guess, if there's, cracks?
It really depends on how they poured your foundation, right? So if the steps coming up were part of the entire foundation, then yeah, you might, does it affect the overall performance of the house? Maybe not necessarily. It could just be because it's kind of a weak point in that foundation. If they poured it separate, then I would say no, right? Because those steps are going to settle and move a little bit, and it's just a small block of concrete, and stuff like that. So there's a lot more that goes
Got it.
into it. I guess you just kind of have to look at the whole situation and look around.
I'll go down and look afterwards.
I know,
here.
thank you. I need you to go look at my steps, Jessica.
Go
Yeah,
look
and
at her
then I'm like,
steps.
oh my
That's
gosh.
gonna
I'm gonna go look. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think they're separate. Remembering from your front
Yeah.
porch, so I
Yeah,
think they're
that's good.
separate. So just a little bit of movement. You're probably
Great.
fine.
As inspectors, I may know how to fix a lot of stuff, but I can't tell people how to fix the stuff, right?
Right.
Because I'm not
Yes.
a specialist. So, inspectors, we're what I tell everybody. It's like going to your general practitioner, right? Like if you gonna go into something and you're having an ache or whatever, do you go to your general doctor first to kind of figure out what specialist we need to go to? Versus just jumping in and calling all the specialists and kind of digging from there. So we're just kind of general practitioners. We come in and give you the honeydews and the details and everything that we can find about the house, and then say, okay, I think you're having more of a foundation issue here, so call the specialist.
Yeah.
Plumbing issues, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that analogy. It's perfect.
Yeah, makes sense.
Any other red flag suggestions? Is there anything for plumbing?
Plumbing's kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
Unless they're going to spend time running the faucets and the plumbing, it's kind of hard on a walk around,
Yeah.
on a showing to really get that feel for it. I think one thing they could possibly look for is kind of on the exterior, especially if you have the older houses. Again, we're going
Mhm.
back into older houses. looking for cleanouts, right? If you see PVC cleanouts kind of in the front yard or in the backyard, depending, on the alley
Okay,
or
wait, what
whatever.
is that? What does that mean? I'm sorry. What's a PVC clean out?
So, so the little caps where in the front yard, usually you'll see one or two of them on a plastic pipe that's sticking out in the yard. And they'll have caps on them, and that's where the plumbers open up, and they can, if you have a backup in your line, they're able to access the plumbing system that way.
Gotcha.
So if you're out looking around a house, and like I said, especially older houses, look around the front yard, and if you're seeing like a little pipe with a little, rubber cap or plastic cap on it, chances are they've updated the main lines, because a lot of what I run into is cast iron piping.
Yeah.
So the cast iron is only meant to last about 50 years. I say some people that have it for 100, okay, 50 to 100 years, but older houses, when you're getting into the 30s, 40s, 50s, even still some 60s houses, I think the one I did today was a 71, and it had cast iron. So the cast iron main lines, which is where the plumbing comes out from under the house and goes to the street, a lot of times if you have trees in the yard, the roots can get into those. Same way with the PVC, the plastic, lines. Tree roots can separate those joints, but cast iron tends to start rusting and scaling and deteriorating. So a lot of times on those older houses, I automatically, like today, we'll take today as an example. I had a cast iron clean out. It's rare to see that clean out, but I had one. And so it was a recommendation for her, even though everything that I did, everything was running great. We didn't really have any issues in the house, but it's still a recommendation to have a sewer company come out and put a camera through that line to check on it for you, to see if they can find any breaks, any cracks, because that's a big expense. Replacing a main plumbing line's a big expense.
Oh, wow. Yes.
I don't know if I shared with you. So there was a house you recently inspected for one of my clients, and the water was backing up when she was doing all of her tests. Water was coming up in one of the bathtub drains. So there was a clog or something happening. They ended up having to replace all the pipes under the house. It was a $25,000 repair. So
Yikes.
yeah, it was a big job, but they got all new pipes now.
Yeah, that's perfect for the buyer.
But yeah, this is why it's not something we would have been able to see. We needed someone there doing those inspections to catch that problem. So,
and to run that. Now, there are a lot of home inspectors around here that offer sewer scopes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's awesome. I personally do not, because for me, I could charge you or my client, I could charge them that $250 to $300 to run a sewer camera down those lines if I feel there's an issue. And I say, okay, yeah, we've got a separation or a crack. I'm still going to tell you you're going to have to call a plumber, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you call the plumber, I mean, you may get the seller to do that or whatever, but even still, if it's, hey, they're buying it as is, you're going to have to call a plumber. Well, that plumber is going to then charge another $250 to $300 just to run their camera.
Yeah, they got to do it themselves. Yeah.
Exactly where the crack is. So, I usually tell my buyers, I can kind of get a feel for it based on the age of the house, just things I'm seeing inside. Do we have issues like things backing up? Enough for me to say, hey, go ahead and have this scoped, and if they feel like they need to, then they can pay out of pocket to that person directly versus paying me and then paying someone else. So
that makes sense.
Maybe in the future we'll offer it, but I don't foresee that. I always tell everybody I don't look at sewer camera videos every day. I look at general houses. I'm not a plumber, so the last thing I want to do is come in and tell you you've got a separation or a break in a line because I'm seeing this video that I see one or two of every other week. And then the plumber comes out and digs it all up and says, oh, no, that inspector's an idiot. So now we've got a huge problem because who's going to come after me, right? Because they want this paid for. So,
well, yeah. And I mean, they're going to charge, like you said, we've had this multiple times, and they'll charge you again. So I've had houses where there's been 3 scopes done because the inspector did it, the seller's plumber did it, the buyer's plumber did one, and it's a lot of money to spend. So might as well go straight to the plumber and let them do it, especially because if they end up having to do hydrostatic tests or more things, then they're already there. So
yeah, for sure. And I'm not, I'm in this because I really enjoy the business. I really just love what I do. And so the money is the byproduct of that and the income, but I don't feel like gouging people and trying to increase my revenue just to when I can say, hey, go to that expert.
Right.
Well, do you normally, okay, so you work with a lot of buyers then, right? So does a seller, I guess, Jessica, maybe I should ask you this, like, does a seller get an inspection on the house they're going to be listing, or do you recommend that? Like, to get
I don't
heads up?
normally recommend, unless it's, I don't know, if it's a unique property, not in the norm, usually wait and allow the buyer to do it. And because they're going to want to get one of their own anyway, and then decide what they want to request from there, as far as repairs go. But if there's specific areas of concern, like if their roof is already 20 years old, well, honestly, every listing I have, I tell them to get a roofer out to check it. We don't want to deal with that after the fact. Service your AC, so I'll give them specific things to do, but not a general. Do you do any inspections? Have you done many for sellers that are preparing to put their home on the market?
I have done some. I think that's that fine line that they walk because they don't want to disclose anything that's found, right?
Yeah.
Like yes, it's catch-22. If they don't necessarily want to fix it, they don't want to disclose it, let somebody else, let them find it and ask for it if it bothers that person. So I get all that. I have had several that I've done, and they've gone through and taken the list and repaired everything because they wanted their house to go to market in the most pristine condition they could get it. So yes, it is kind of that catch-22 of do we do it, do we not do it? I do some of them. I think Jessica's on the right path, definitely with the recommendations, because every home inspector is going to tell you to have your HVAC serviced. If the roof's bad, and you can glance at it, yes, you're going to want to know, whether or not you need to file a claim or, get that taken care of, because that'll come back on the reports too. So yeah, I mean, I do a few of them. Sometimes is it a good idea? I think so, obviously, but I get why people don't.
Well, I think if you are like in that situation, yes, they wanted to do work and fix up the house. When we list a house, if we have an inspection, we have to share that up front. And it's a big report. There's 20, 30, sometimes 40 pages of paperwork. And if you're a first time buyer and you don't understand what some of this means, it could be very daunting and scary to read that without having the inspector there to explain those things to you. So if you're just doing it and you're not planning to repair those things, it may come off a little scary.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And also as a lender, we don't want to see that report.
Yeah, never send it to the lender.
At all, because the houses are collateral, right? So those reports make it look like the house could be falling apart. So
Shelly's over here plugging ears. I don't want to hear it all.
Yeah, I don't know on those situations.
Yeah, for sure. No, it makes a good point. You know what? I had but not only that, home inspections are good for that day and time, right?
Yep.
You also, it is property of the person that purchases the report, right? So if the homeowner purchases that report, yes, you have to have their permission at that point then to share it with any potential buyers. So example, I had a buyer call me. I've done several inspections for him. He just hadn't quite found the right house yet. But he called me and he goes, hey, I'm under contract on this house and they have an inspection on it. Will you look at it and tell me? And I said, well, first of all, how old's the inspection? He said 6 months.
Oh,
and I said, no. I said, I'm telling you, a lot can change. A lot can change in 24 hours, so here you are 6. Well, they've repaired some of that stuff. I'm like, okay. And then he said, well, will you look at it? Because if you look at it and you trust it, then I trust you. And I said, but that's the problem. I don't trust it. I'm an inspector and I don't trust a report that's 2 days old, much less 6 months old. So yeah, best advice is, even if, to home buyers, if listing agents are offering you report, that's awesome. But, you can get into not only that, you don't have a leg to stand on. If you go off of that previous report, you're not the purchaser of that report. And if that inspector has indeed missed something, you can't go back to that inspector and say, hey, you messed up, you missed this, we want to file a claim on your insurance, right? Because that inspector is going to look at you and go, you didn't purchase that report. You're not my buyer. So me, I tell people I'm first to stand up. If you feel I missed something, then hey, I carry insurance for a reason. It was an honest mistake. If I missed it, I missed it. And we'll go file it on insurance, because that's one way of taking care of you guys, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, I want to tag on to what I was saying about, the lender doesn't want the inspection report, right? Well, I've had situations in the case where a a real estate agent negotiating repairs, instead of typing up the specific repairs on an amendment, they say, see page 12 of the inspection report. Well, as a lender, we cannot get one page of a document, right? So then that requires us to get the entire document and provide it to our underwriter.
And then that opens a can of worms.
Oh, yeah. And then they can look at it and go, ooh, no, you know what? I want this, this, and this fixed. And now they're lender required repairs simply because the agent didn't type in the specific repairs. They just, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, they were too lazy and just said, look at page 12, and it opened up an entire can of worms.
They just don't know. They don't realize the consequences of that till it happens.
Exactly. I don't think they'll ever do that again. But
inexperienced, right? They've never had, they've never been on the seller side of it and had a listing where the buyer backed out, and they're like, well, why did they back out? Well, here's the entire report.
Yes.
And now guess what? Now you're stuck, as a listing agent with an entire report that you're like, oh, I didn't need that whole report.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, we always ask our guest, can you share any crazy stories with us? I'm sure you've seen a lot. I love seeing some of the stuff you put on social media. Any fun stories?
I got a lot, actually. As a matter of fact, it was just yesterday. It was kind of a weird. It was a warranty, an 11-month warranty. So we'll talk about new builds here in a minute, guys. So let's not just trust the builder on that. I was at a 11-month warranty inspection, and the guy was home, and the husband, and he went and he laid the baby down in the bedroom, and I said, okay. So I worked around the entire house, letting the baby sleep, and the wife had come home. And I noticed she was in the bedroom too, because I had happened to walk by the camera that he had on the counter, and I thought, okay, she's sitting in there, and that's all I could make out. And I said, is it all right if I go in the bedroom and go into the bathroom and get everything I need to do taken care of? And he's like, oh yeah. And he looks over at the monitor, and he goes, yeah, she's just in there watching the baby sleep. And I said, okay, cool. I open that bedroom door, and she's pumping breast milk.
Oh no!
Full on display, and I'm like,
oh no!
I was like, I am so sorry.
Whoops.
I was like, let me get in here to this bathroom.
Excuse
and I was like, but then she just carried on talking to me. So it's a natural thing. I get it. I'm a female. I don't have a problem with it. But it was just one of those shock and awe moments where you're like, oh, sorry, you're
oh my goodness.
Husband may have slept on the couch that night for telling you to go in there.
I don't know. And it was like, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. But yeah, then I came back out, and she's still pumping, and we just had a whole conversation, and I was like, whatever. He was comfortable. It was just one of those shock and awe moments.
I think any of us that go into people's houses all have a naked story of some sort, walking in on someone in the shower.
Well, between the naked stories and just, I find all kinds of things,
Sure.
You want to name it? I've probably found it. But yeah, it's crazy stuff. I've got, I have situations where my reports, I include videos to show everybody. So if I have water coming up from the foundation with a plumbing backup and it's coming up through the floor, usually you have a problem. And so I provide video of that, and and it never fails. They come back and they're like, oh, we can't replicate that leak, so we don't know what your inspector's talking about. And I'm like, well, did y'all, did they scope it? No, they didn't run a scope. Well, did they, So I get all kinds of craziness like that. We get the craziness of, they call and they go, oh, well, it's your fault that this happened. And I'm like, but did you read your report at all? We really do get those situations where it's like, did you even read the report? Because I'm pretty sure I mentioned that in that report 3 times, We
were just talking about this earlier, people not reading things. I'm like, I sent you an email with all the details, and they're like, no, didn't bother with any of that. So,
well, they want the Cliff Notes versions.
Like, this is a huge purchase, though. Please pay attention. Please pay attention.
I try to stress it. I'm like, look, we're gonna go over this, and we're meeting in person, and I'm giving you the highlights. But you really need to read that report, right? You really, really need to read the report. So
I had a buyer one time, the inspector was trying to show her some important things about the house, the location of all the things that she needed to know. And she's doing selfies with her in the house. And I'm like, stop it. She's like, well, I'll just, call my parents if I need things. And I was like, no, girl, stop the selfies, turn around, pay attention. Oh,
I've had some that I've just finally quit talking to because they're so all over the place and, paying attention to something. And they have their friend there with them. That's all, and I was just like, all right, well, whenever y'all are done, I'm ready. So I'm like, You'll get the report later. I'm out of here. I can't handle this. I call it spastastic sometimes, which people are awesome. I love people, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. I can be spastastic, but yeah, I'm just like, I'm hot, I'm tired, I've been in this house for 4 hours,
I'm
and you don't
done.
want to listen.
I'm out. It's fast. I'm going to use that word. I like it.
Yes. Okay, let's get back.
Spastastic.
You mentioned new builds, which is a good one. So, yes, important to get, I hear it all the time, but it's brand new and the city inspected it.
Ooh.
So why do I need an inspection?
Well, because I find all the things that the city inspector and their builder inspector didn't find. Yeah, I get a lot of that, a lot of pushback. Now, I think a lot of builders have actually tried to make it harder and harder for inspectors, third-party inspectors like myself, to come in and do inspections because they're really pushing, and they'll try to get us to sign all kinds of paperwork, and it's about safety, and you got to have this much insurance. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll get that much insurance. So I do carry extra insurance just for that reason. And, they'll bump it up. Oh, you need, $2 million worth of general liability insurance in case you fall or you break something. And I'm like, the chances of me breaking something over the subcontractor are like almost nothing, but okay. So they'll go that route, and then they'll really push and say, well, we've had the city inspectors. Well, I can tell y'all, I've been in houses doing an inspection and watched the city inspector come in and walk around and flip on lights, flip them on and off, eat his apple, and he's gone in 15 minutes and green tag the electrical system. Where when I get done, I'm like, here you go, here's all the write-ups for the electrical system. I've seen the building, city inspector and the builder's inspector. Well, we have the builder's inspector. The builder's inspectors, they do this, and so everything's good. You don't need a third-party inspector. That's the number one thing they say. You don't need a third-party inspector. So building inspectors are out there trying to look at sometimes 30-plus houses a day. Builder inspectors are out there, again, 20-plus or more. They're running, and they see the same things over and over and over and over. So a third-party inspector really is an extra set of eyes, right? They get in such a rush that sometimes they do miss stuff. And it's not, I'm not there to argue with the builder on whether or not their code, that they're building it to that code, because there are different codes that they follow depending on what city, what county.
What year?
I'm here to tell, yeah, what year. There are some counties, the further west we get out, like Wise County and, some areas past that they're building on 2018 code books. And that's fine, right? I'm still going to tell you what the current code is, but I'm not going to argue with that builder and I do explain that to my clients, that just because I call it out doesn't mean it's wrong on the new build. But I find, vents missing all the time that they didn't cut through. Sometimes I find faulty wiring. Probably the craziest thing I found was they had 2 water heaters, and the discharge, they call it pressure relief valves on them, so that if it gets overheated or overpressured, these valves go off. And they're run to the exterior of the house. Well, there were 2 water heaters, but I only had 1 pipe on the outside.
Oh, no.
And so I opened the valve, and, now, mind you, there's this humongous wet spot in the garage floor, and coming through the mortar on the outside, through the wall, to show that they never plumbed it all the way through. Well, the city guy had walked right by it 3 times and green tagged everything. So I was like, well, your city guy was just here, and he didn't see that huge wet spot and the fact that they, cut this through the wall. So, it's little things like that. I mean, I find stuff that they miss putting this caulk here. A lot of stuff that you would find on a blue tape walkthrough whenever you take your buyers and y'all go through and y'all put the blue tape for the touch-ups. Yes, I call out some of that stuff, especially on the exterior. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things that regardless, and I can't preach it enough. I mean, we always try to preach it to people that, I don't care if you use me or not, just get a third-party inspector, especially on the new builds. And if you decide not to get it on the final walkthrough, you need to get it on your 11 month.
Well, and that's what I'm about to say, just, for our listeners who don't know, you can get inspections during the construction process. And that's what I love. I love when we're building and especially the pre-sheetrock, because you're going in and you're getting to see behind the walls. If you buy a house and you don't see it till it's sheetrock's up, or you're buying an existing home, you're never getting that chance. So it's a unique opportunity. The things we have found, I had one house, I won't say the builder's name. The plumber cut through one of the studs completely. And there's percentages of how much you can cut out of a stud. They cut through it completely. And it was a stud that was under the stairs too. But yeah, it had passed everything. Nobody caught it that a stud was completely cut through. No support on that whatsoever to run a pipe. We find stuff on every one of them. And I love that pre-sheetrock. You're getting to see so many things. Yeah. And I even go through with a video to record where everything's at. So they have that for the future. If they ever have issues, they can go and they know where all the plumbing and electrical is behind the walls. So they'll have that forever. But it's great. Then, yeah, the one before closing, after everything's done.
Before or something? Is that what you're saying?
Like a week before, when the buyer will normally go in and they'll do a orientation with the builder and they'll look for those things. But it's so much easier if you already have had your inspector there to crawl through the attic, make sure all the ductwork is installed correctly. Like all you're doing is looking at paint touch-ups and minor things, and you're getting to learn the house. But the 11-month one is nice too, because what they do before your 1-year warranty is up, have the inspector back out to look for things, because things may have failed in the meantime. So that way it's still under warranty. So I recommend all the inspections.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think one of my favorite pictures to show when I go in and do realtor classes, to kind of the stuff we've kind of been talking about today, like what to look for and what to show your buyers. One of my favorite pictures is a pre-drywall picture where they had completely cut the roof truss system, right? So that's like the rafters and the main roof support system and structure. They had completely cut it out in one or two spots to put the chimney through. And so truss, just, quick FYI, it's kind of nerdy, home inspector nerdy here. The truss systems are only supposed to be cut at the manufacturers, and that's they're designed to take the load bearing. So, the big, beautiful open floor plan that everybody loves now, sometimes are dependent on those truss systems being in place. And so when they cut out a whole bottom half of a cord and a truss, it's like you're cutting out rafters on your house. So,
Amy, being so dramatic, the whole structure of your home may fail, but whatever. I mean, who needs a roof?
Depends on how many they cut and how much they cut. But yeah, you're right. Like the stuff you find with the plumber, and we find it all the time on the pre-drywall stuff, and them putting what they call anchor bolts, which your outside walls of your house are supposed to be anchored every 6 feet with bolts that are built into the concrete, right?
Yes.
So I find those missing all the time. Because they get in a rush, and that takes a lot of pre-planning on their part and their plans being dead on and them placing everything in the right spots. But we find them missing and
all the time. I had one room; it was a corner of the house, and the 2 exterior walls had no bolts, not one.
Yeah. It gets crazy. So bottom line, whatever, pre-pour, which is the concrete before they pour the slab, pre-drywall, final walk, and then 11 months. Get them all for sure.
It's so worth it. Protecting your investment. You never get that opportunity again. So
yeah. Well, I tell you. So one of the funny things, I was in Half Price Books the other day, and I was waiting on my son. He's walking around, looking at books, and so I ended up over there in the I guess the get rich books, right?
Yes.
That section over there about investing and smart money. And I don't remember what book, but it was one of like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, whatever.
Yeah.
How to become rich and and save your money and living and so I was just kind of thumbing through the book and I flipped to a page and all I saw was home inspection and appraisal. And I was like, wait, what is that? Right? I go back and find it at number 5 thing on his list about ways to save money, right? And it was get a home inspection and an appraisal. That was on his list. And he went on to talk about how, like you said, this is a huge investment. You're investing $250,000 into something. Why do you want to put a whole lot more money into it right away, right? When home inspections can reveal all this and appraisals, can say, is it worth that much money? So I was like, well, that's neat. Well, at least home inspectors and appraisers made somebody's list. Right?
Where's the lenders in all this, guys? Like, I'm feeling really left out.
I don't know. They have problems with y'all's rates right now, apparently.
Oh my goodness, you're going to go there, are you?
They're getting
Let me
better.
know.
They're getting better.
You're getting a little
And
bit.
They
it's all
are getting
Shelly's
better.
fault
It's
that
all
they
my
were so
fault.
bad.
The rates are my fault. Yeah.
She
I'll
made
lower
it.
them when I feel like it.
True story.
Oh. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
And
thank you.
yeah, we'll be sure to link your contact info, your website in our socials and in the show notes. So if anybody's looking for a home inspector, you serve all of DFW?
Yes, I do all of DFW.
Okay.
I pretty much tell, wherever your realtor goes, I go. We do
Perfect.
work, so we're available weekends and everything else. I do want to say anybody that happens to pick up and if they're not listening in the DFW area and happen to pick up y'all's podcast or anything else, there is a list out there that a couple of my mentors from New York and a guy from New York and everybody have kind of put together, and I'll send y'all that. It's called bestinspectorlist.com. So
Love
if you're
that.
Thank
yeah,
you.
if you're in an area and looking, I mean, this is not just, hey, I want to be on your list. This is, we've been vetted pretty much to kind of figure out what we do and how we do it. So,
That's great.
So yeah, and on top of y'all's, like I said, on TikTok, I know there's a couple of guys that put out awesome videos that'll kind of drive home a lot of what we're talking about and a lot of stuff that they see. But yeah, check those guys out. Guy named Preston Kincaid
Yes.
he's phenomenal, and Inspector AJ Austin Jenkins.
Yes, he's on mine too.
Yeah, those two guys, I absolutely love them. I getting into the business, we bounce a lot off each other, and they're there to help anybody answer questions. But they put out phenomenal videos and stuff like that. So that's the quick shout out to them. If anybody wants to check out some of their TikToks, and I don't do a lot of social media, shame on me.
Oh,
But yeah.
yeah.
I do my Facebook. What's Amy up to today? But
Yes, I love those.
It's corny stuff, right? That's not like I do show y'all things every now and then that I find, but that's just more fun than anything.
Yes. Well, perfect. Well, yeah, I'll link all of that. And thank you for that. I will be sure to put that website in the show notes as well. So I love that you guys have put that together.
Absolutely. Thank you. This
Thank
has been
you.
Great.
I noticed, and I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yes. Well, have a great one.
All right, ladies, I appreciate it.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, that was so much fun having her on. Learned a lot.
Absolutely. And I can't wait for you to go look at my front porch steps to see if it's my foundation or just the steps.
I think it's just the steps, but we'll take a look at that on the way out.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us. And as I mentioned, we'll have everything that she talked about in the show notes. So you guys have links to that. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, where we hope you make the best of your nest.
Bye.
Bye.